Chapter 1126. This art is Ocean Remover. Perhaps even he doesn't know about this, Su Ming mumbled. Perhaps this is just a misunderstanding. Perhaps these are just guesses, and this is how the seed of life extermination grows. Once it becomes complete, everything will change. It must be. Su Ming fell silent, and he suppressed the anguish and doubts in his heart. As he remained silent, the pain from his nascent divinity continued attacking his senses. Su Ming was forced to shift his attention to his nascent divinity again. This time, he did not look at the seed of life extermination, but intentionally ignored it. He did not want to continue thinking too deeply about this problem, so he chose to observe the only other thing he could. The Abyss Gate, which had devoured a large amount of Su Ming's life force, countless cultivators, and even planets had begun nourishing Su Ming in the world with the ocean of light, thereby allowing his nascent divinity to become an imperishable existence. Su Ming stared at the Abyss Gate formed by crystallization. It gave off a feeling that it was very feeble, that it could be crushed with the slightest squeeze. It was just like a door which belonged to a poor man's house in the mortal world. There was a huge difference between it and the doors of those with illustrious statuses or the royal family. It was not a difference in growth, but a difference in foundation. Su Ming stared at his rather shoddy Abyss Gate quietly. As time passed, he averted his gaze and stared at the ocean of light around him. He could not move his body, because the moment he did so, intense pain which was thousands of times stronger than before would course through his body. He had also noticed that the aura of abyss spreading out from his Abyss Gate was gradually lessening. Once it stopped, his nascent divinity would stop healing. At that time, what would await him would be his nascent divinity being instantly crushed. And if he moved, he would just speed up the release rate of his aura of abyss and shorten the time till his death. Perhaps. I will really need to stay here for eternity. Baldy, you're late. Su Ming believed that the bald crane would come, but perhaps it had gone off to another direction in the vast ocean of light. But even at that moment, Su Ming did not fear death. He only felt slightly regretful. He regretted that he did not manage to save Yu Xian, find his senior brothers, and fulfill his wish of creating a home for himself. These regrets turned into a sigh. As he lay in the ocean of light, he overlooked the amount of aura of abyss spreading out from his body and ignored the signs of death because he suddenly realized that the light around him was actually very beautiful. This sort of beautiful sight could not be seen in the universe. It could only be seen in this place, and it was an indescribable beauty formed by an innumerable number of light rays. He paid no heed to what would happen after he died and just watched the lights, admiring the beauty which would become the last thing he saw in his life when his nascent divinity vanished. As he continued watching, Su Ming forgot his current condition. He felt as if he had become a part of the endless light and as if they had fused together. He swam about in the world without restraint. This ocean is formed by light which can be seen and wind which can be detected. Su Ming mumbled. He ignored his imminent death and immersed himself in the strange feeling. While within it, he felt like he had returned to the past, when he was in the land of berserkers and gained his epiphany to clear his mind in the 9th summit. During it, he had understood how to clear his mind with drawing and what it meant to have changes of heart. This time, as he watched the light, he was immersed in a situation akin to gaining an epiphany. However, he was not in a trance as he went through a change of heart. Instead, he was in a trance because of the ocean of light's magnificence and beauty. Perhaps only when a person was about to die yet completely forgot its shadow looming over their heads would they be able to observe the beauty of this light so wholeheartedly. Maybe because Su Ming knew that he would not be able to watch it for much longer, he valued what little time he had. Time trickled by. As the ocean of light moved about, Su Ming was swept even further away, and he saw more light rays. There was no end to them, and his body was surrounded by light. He did not notice, though, that the aura of abyss spreading out from his body had become thinner and that it seemed like before long there would be no more aura of abyss left to nourish his body. And his nascent divinity was being torn apart even more violently while he was swept about in the ocean of light. What a strange light! Once it fuses with the wind, it forms an ocean, and it possesses the power that can destroy everything. As Su Ming mumbled under his breath, he saw a flash of black among the many lights. He was familiar with it, for it was the light of extreme darkness. Then, how was the light formed? Su Ming had forgotten that he currently existed only as a nascent divinity and was immersed in the strange condition. He stared at the endless light around him with the question in his mind. He wanted to know the answer, to learn how the light appeared and understand why there were countless variations of it, how it formed the ocean, and how it possessed such an astonishing power which could destroy everything in the world. Before he came into contact with the light of extreme darkness, Su Ming had not believed that light was a form of energy. It was something which could be seen and was indispensable in the galaxy. However, the light of extreme darkness he encountered in Morning Dao Sec's striking lands had overturned his thoughts. He gradually came to accept that light was a form of energy. While he disregarded the problem of his upcoming death, Su Ming had a feeling like he had turned into light. The brightness of the light of extreme darkness among the countless rays of light seemed to have taken away all what remained of his will in the nascent divinity, causing Su Ming to feel as if he had become a part of the light beyond the universe. He felt like the light of extreme darkness, and he swam about all sorts of other lights. As he continued thinking, he felt like the rays of light were continuously being magnified. He had done it to the limit of his third eye, and what he saw was no longer light. Instead, there was nothingness surrounding two huge runic symbols. They were not drawn by man, but seemed to have been born naturally beyond the universe. They also only looked like runic symbols, but were not. Their complexity was definitely not something that cultivators could create or copy. Su Ming saw the two symbols crash against each other before fusing together. The fusion rate was perfect, and once they become one, he saw that their complexity had increased even more. It was as if the runic symbols Su Ming had seen just then were just a brand of a lowest grade, and once they fused together, they rapidly rose to a higher level. As the runic symbol evolved from a lower to a higher form of existence, threads of power that Su Ming could not see but could feel and which terrified him rushed out from the void. They fused into the runic symbols like they were the nourishment the symbols needed during their process of moving from a lower to a higher form of existence. When the transformation of the runic symbol reached its peak and its absorption of the power seemed to have reached a boundless state, Su Ming suddenly saw that the runic symbol now so complicated that it was impossible to describe it with words experience or reversion. It no longer continued improving, but instead started changing from a higher to a lower form of existence. During the transformation, there was no longer any power from the void fusing into the runic symbol. When it changed from a higher to a lower form of existence, an indescribable, terrifying power was released from within it. As it was released, light appeared. When Su Ming saw this, his heart started trembling furiously. He had a vague feeling that he seemed to have understood something, but the simplicity in this complexity was always a hair's breadth away from giving him an epiphany. He lacked something to connect all of it to himself. Breathing. It's breathing. Su Ming's mind trembled. During that instant, he found the connection it was breathing. The feeling he had from the scene he'd just watched was similar to one of his own breathing. First was inhalation. This action was the runic symbols absorbing a large amount of power from the space around it to transform into a higher form of existence. When it reached the peak, it exhaled, and it was the same as releasing the power from the void which it had absorbed. Then, light would be formed. At the instant Su Ming came to understand this, a loud roar rang out in his mind. His abyss gate no longer released the aura of abyss, and his nascent divinity was about to be torn apart by the ocean of light. Yet during that moment, Su Ming closed his eyes and sucked in a deep breath of the light. His nascent divinity came to a swift halt, and the instant Su Ming exhaled, his nascent divinity swiftly started recovering. Strong rays of light also swiftly spread out from it. His nascent divinity shuddered. His eyes flew open, and understanding appeared in them. There isn't any wind here. The light formed this ocean because it is a type of energy, and it looked like it was being moved because it was being released. This released light is thus strong enough to destroy everything. Light. This is light. The light from Su Ming's nascent divinity reached 100,000 feet. He moved slightly in the ocean of light and fused completely with the light around him. Dazzling light shone in his eyes. He sucked in a deep breath, and loud rumbles immediately spread out from his nascent divinity. Two faint balls of light appeared within him, and in them were the two complicated runic symbols Su Ming had seen earlier. As he breathed in, they fused together in his body. Immediately after, a large amount of power from the void turned into the air that he sucked in, causing the fusion of the runic symbols in his body to jump from a lower to a higher form of existence before they swiftly reversed and released a powerful light. Su Ming's breathing became more rapid. The light from the runic symbols in his body became stronger as they ceaselessly moved from a lower to higher form of existence before reversing. The light spread out to 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 feet. After a short span of a dozen breaths, Su Ming threw his head back and roared. The light in his body had already reached hundreds of thousands of feet in all directions. During that instant, Su Ming was the ocean of light. The light he released had already become an ocean. From within it, all the other rays of light were chased away, and only Su Ming's light remained. It was the light of extreme darkness. This art is what appears after Mountain Shifter, and it will be known as Ocean Remover 1. At the instant Su Ming's voice reverberated in the air, he leapt up. From the distance, it looked as if an ocean of light had risen, and with a vast presence, it shook the whole world. When Su Ming rose to the heavens with the ocean of light, he pushed down fiercely. The space roared, and a rarely seen sight of a loud roar breaking the silence in the world in the ocean of light could be seen. Chapter 1127, Essence of Light. Light of extreme darkness. Right now, I am the light of extreme darkness. I wonder if I can be considered to have reached the fulfillment of the light of extreme darkness. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. His body turned into endless light and formed the ocean of light. When booming sound spread out in all directions and the light disappeared, all the light of extreme darkness swiftly shrank to form a single figure. It had fluttering black hair, a dazzling black robe, and a profound dark light shining in its black eyes. Naturally, it was Su Ming. He stood alone in the ocean of light. At that moment, he was a part of the ocean and no longer felt any hint of himself being torn apart. Instead, he had a feeling like he had the power to move the universe with just a flip of his hand. I haven't reached fulfillment yet. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. If I had reached fulfillment, then when I sent out this light of extreme darkness, the light of extreme darkness born from the ocean of light would have come to me as well. Light of extreme darkness. The word extreme shows its domineering nature, and it will belong solely to me if I reach fulfillment in cultivating it. Su Ming's eyes sparkled. After a moment, determination appeared in his eyes. He closed them, and when he stretched out his arms, the two runic symbols in his body fused together and released their energy. The black light of extreme darkness instantly erupted from Su Ming's body. This time, he did not even try to intentionally stop it. He did not think about his own limits. He wanted to release all the light of extreme darkness which could be produced in his body, and he wanted to release it to its limits. These thoughts seemed to stir up his light of extreme darkness and form a strange sort of unity with it. Immediately, the light of extreme darkness spreading out from Su Ming's body erupted and spread out at an indescribable speed. 10,000, 100,000, 300,000, around 1 million feet, and eventually, millions of feet. If anyone cast their gaze across the area, they would find that all the light around Su Ming had been chased off. The only thing remaining was a ball of extreme black. Only the light of extreme darkness was left. Even when the light had spread out to this extent, Su Ming did not intend to stop. He could sense that he had yet to reach his limit and that he had not reached the extent which he expected. His intentions were very simple. There were countless differing rays of light in the world, but he had chosen to become the light of extreme darkness. And since he did so, he would become the only light of extreme darkness in the universe. The one and only. The light from Su Ming's body was still spreading out in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it covered an area that was nearly 10 million feet in diameter. As time passed, it surpassed this area and continued spreading boundlessly until Su Ming finally sensed his limits. However, he still chose not to give up, because he sensed that he had yet to become the only light of extreme darkness. That was why even if he had reached his limits, the two runic symbols in his body continued absorbing and releasing power. When Su Ming reached the point when he no longer knew how far his light of extreme darkness had expanded, a loud rumble came from his body. At the instant it resounded within him, Su Ming felt that his light of extreme darkness had reached a boundary and broken through some sort of seal. His heart trembled. The light of extreme darkness spreading out from his body seemed to have become slightly different from before, but Su Ming could not tell what exactly was different. The only thing he could see was that the two runic symbols in his body had fused together and become even more complicated. He had a strong feeling that they had truly fused together. They were no longer fusing together to absorb the power from the void and separating to release light. It looked like they would no longer separate from then on. At the same time, Su Ming sensed that he no longer needed to control anything or release anything. The light of extreme darkness which had appeared around him in this area of tens of millions of feet seemed to have become an eternal existence. Essence of light. Su Ming came to a swift realization. At that moment, not only was he no longer required to continuously release power to form the light of extreme darkness, he himself had become an essence of light which could constantly release it. Soon after, Su Ming sensed that there were 4 origins of the light of extreme darkness which were the exact same as him in the boundless ocean of light. These were 4 ancient origins of light, and it was clear that they had existed for countless years. They had naturally formed after the scattered lights of extreme darkness in the endless streams of light had gathered together. An ancient feeling rose in Su Ming's heart at that moment. When he perceived the 4 origins of light from the distance, a brilliant glare shone in his eyes. Since he had become the light of extreme darkness, he would become the one and only light of extreme darkness in this world. This thought stemmed from Su Ming's personality. As his eyes sparkled, he swept up the tens of millions of feet worth of ocean formed by his light of extreme darkness, and as a loud bang shot up into the air, he swiftly traveled towards the closest origin of the light of extreme darkness. The memory of him devouring the portions of Yikang's real self in the past arose in Su Ming's head. However, this time, he was not going to devour the sentient Yikang. Instead, he was going to devour the light of extreme darkness born in this world. He would do so to become the one and only source in this place. This was Su Ming's personality, and also an unseen law in this world. No one had set it down, and neither was there any living beings who had the right to form this law. It was just how nature was. It was similar to that moment. The boundless lights in the ocean of light shone with a dazzling brilliance, but they were not sentient. This meant that once one of them became a sentient being, the other similar forms of light would be made to merge with it. The ones who were sentient would gather the others to fuse with them. This was one of the unseen laws in the universe. It could not be changed, and no one would want to change it. Time trickled by. With his speed after he turned into the light of extreme darkness, Su Ming reached a vast mass of black seawater several days later. It was an ocean formed by black light, and it was born from the origin of the light of extreme darkness which was the exact same entity as he. The process of Su Ming devouring it began the moment he saw it. The black light of extreme darkness fused with him, and there was not a single bit of struggle from it. In just a few breaths, a long howl reverberated in the ocean of light. At that instant, both origins of light fused completely. A gigantic ball of light exuding light which could spread to 100 million feet appeared in the ocean of light. As that huge ball of the light of extreme darkness appeared and Su Ming's howl reverberated in the ocean of light, his heart trembled again, and the feeling as if some sort of seal had been broken rose in his heart. At that instant, the other 3 balls of the light of extreme darkness which he had perceived from a distance earlier collapsed simultaneously to turn into countless lights of extreme darkness that charged towards him at an extreme speed from all directions. Their act of drawing closer to him made it seem like Su Ming had become the progenitor of the light of extreme darkness, and all of the lights of extreme darkness born in this ocean of light longed to fuse with him. They charged forward, and within several days, they continuously approached him. The ball of light which was Su Ming continued expanding from its previous 100 million feet. Every single time he fused with a ray of the light of extreme darkness, the ball of light would become slightly larger. Once he had fused with all the lights of extreme darkness within his perception, his heart roared, and the ocean of light within a circular area of 300 million feet turned black. Yet it was also at that moment that 6 other huge origins of light appeared in Su Ming's perception. They were all larger than Su Ming, and they were so far away from him that even if he turned into the light of extreme darkness and charged forward at full speed, he would still need hundreds of years to reach them. The ocean of light was simply too big, there was no end to it. In fact, Su Ming had a very strong feeling that even if he fused with the 6 origins of light, he would still sense even larger origins of the light of extreme darkness in the endless ocean of light. Cultivating light is like cultivating Tao. There is no end to light, and there is no end to Tao, Su Ming mumbled. He seemed to have come to understand something from the light of extreme darkness, but when he pondered over it, he felt as if he had not understood anything. In silence, he gave up on continuing to fuse with the other lights of extreme darkness. It was not because he could not do it, but because it would require too much time, and as of then, time was incredibly precious to him. It's about time that I leave, but before I do, I still need one more light. All the lights of extreme darkness around Su Ming vanished, and he changed into the figure with the black attire. While standing in the ocean of light, he looked like he was the master of the area. Mumbling under his breath, he took a step forward. He walked among all the colorful lights until he found the light with dashes of red and white intersecting with each other, the one which allowed him to see the veins from the seed of life extermination on his nascent divinity. He swung his arm and took a strand of it into his own body. Once he placed it in his nascent divinity, he prepared to leave the ocean of light. Suddenly, though, his expression changed and he turned into the light of extreme darkness. The ocean of light of 300 million feet appeared in his heart. Su Ming saw the bald crane carefully swimming through the ocean of light in the distance. It would occasionally scream and at other times curse. It looked like the damage to it from the rays of light varied. Some of them would hurt worse, while the others would only injure it lightly. It was evading all the ones which would deal heavy damage while moving forward through the ocean of light. At the same time, Su Ming saw an existence which was clearly a soul thread moving in another direction. It had attached itself to a ray of light and was struggling to keep itself afloat. However, it looked like it was about to dissipate. After a moment of pensive silence, Su Ming raised his foot and took a step forward. His body vanished, and when he appeared, he was right in front of the bald crane. The moment he showed up, the bald crane screamed. "Darn it all, just what sort of rotten luck do I have? Titi, this is an essence of light. I'm done for. I'm seriously done for. Su Ming, you thrice cursed bastard, it's not that I don't want to save you, but I'm in trouble myself." As the bald crane screamed, it swiftly retreated with fear on its face. But the bald crane could not be blamed for not recognizing Su Ming. In its eyes, there was no Su Ming, but a figure with the light of extreme darkness spreading out from it. That light cut off all forms of presences from appearing beyond it, and all other rays of light avoided the area, not daring to get any closer. To the bald crane, this proved that it was faced with an essence of light. Su Ming smiled faintly, but the bald crane could not see it. With swing of his arm, a ball of light of extreme darkness enveloped the bald crane. He brought it through space, straight where he had sensed the soul thread. Chapter 1128. Do enter my trap. O Lord Essence of Light, please spare me, and you can be my grandson. This is just nonsense. What am I saying? Spare me, please, take pity on me. I have a wife and children. Why you? Damn it, you stupid essence of light, you're not sentient, so there's no use for me to even bother begging for mercy. As the bald crane screamed, its body shuddered. It was enveloped by a large ball made of the light of extreme darkness. As Su Ming moved forward, the bald crane's voice continued echoing around him. Damn it! Why was there an essence of light here? I avoided all of them so carefully, and I even sensed that the closest one was very far away from me just moments ago. The region in which I was should have had no origins of light. Little boy Su, you seriously came to be the death of me. My crystals. Farewell. I'm such a pitiful crane, I haven't even collected enough of you. I only have such a small amount. I'm such a pitiful crane for not fulfilling my grand wish to buy an entire true world. While the bald crane wailed, Su Ming reached the spot where the soul thread was. He saw it at first glance. The soul thread had attached itself to a ray of milky white light which was a little strange. It was not harmful, and instead nourished nascent divinities, which was why the soul thread was only dissipating. Otherwise, it would have disintegrated a long time ago. Clearly, the soul thread knew about the milky white light, which was why it had thought of such a method to prolong its life. As he stared at the soul thread, surprise appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He lifted his right hand and pointed at the milky white light. Immediately, a memory rose in his mind. It came from the milky white light. In it, Su Ming saw the soul thread appear a month ago. It had arrived at the exact same time as Su Ming. You're just an essence of light, so what are you doing? You know how to lift your hand? Ah, I understand now. You can move freely. You intentionally appeared in front of me. This is impossible. Origins of light are not sentient. How could they move? The bald crane stared at Su Ming's figure from the envelopment of the light of extreme darkness. The person before it looked incredibly bizarre, and the bald crane shouted out in surprise and disbelief. Su Ming lifted his right hand and flicked the space in front of him. Immediately, the milky white light started twisting, bouncing off the soul thread, and Su Ming caught it. You have an arm. You are sentient. Oh heavens, you are sentient. The bald crane shouted out and began rambling on. When Su Ming seized the soul thread with his right hand, he sent over a crystal with a fling of his left hand. The bald crane caught it on instinct and placed it in its beak to bit down hard. Its expression lit up the next moment. In fact, both its bald tail and butt was shaken several times. Su Ming gripped the soul thread. It struggled feebly in his hand, but under the light of extreme darkness, its struggles were futile. A divine sense possessing Su Ming's light of extreme darkness fused swiftly into that soul thread, and when it could no longer resist him, he sent it straight into its core. During that instant, Su Ming saw a memory from the soul thread, and several pictures immediately appeared in his mind. The first picture was of an unfamiliar universe. A black-robed man took a step from a tall mountain and plunged down. As his body scrapped against air, he disappeared without a trace. The second picture was of the same black-robed man standing beyond a gigantic pillar of light. By his side was Bai Feng, whose existence still made Su Ming's heart clench in pain, along with an old man whom Su Ming could recognize at first glance. It was the old Di Tian. In fact, Su Ming could even hear most of their conversation. The third picture was of the black-robed man sitting cross-legged in the pillar of light and executing the replacement plan. It was due to him that the ancient god had self-destructed out of nowhere. Once the pictures disappeared, the soul thread shattered in Su Ming's hand. A replacement plan. This soul thread was prepared for possession. If I hadn't stepped into the world beyond the universe, then once the ancient god self-destructed, it would have crawled into my body and possessed me. A hint of contempt appeared in Su Ming's eyes. If that's the case, then the three hidden dynasts, Dao Hua, and Dao Lin should have been successfully possessed and become part of the Immortals' Union. This soul thread was a portion of the black-robed man's soul. If he could do this with a portion of his soul, then it's clear just how powerful his real strength is. Sublime Paragon Di Tian. So he wants to cast the life-changing art on my real physical body. He wants to borrow my real physical body to change everything about himself with the help of the Saint Defiers and become an abyss builder. A freezing glare shone in Su Ming's eyes. 3 months, huh? I've been here for about a month. I should be able to make it back. Su Ming closed his eyes, and a myriad of thoughts flashed through his head. It was a chance for him to seize his real physical body back. While Su Ming thought, the bald crane put away the crystal and stared cautiously at him while completely enveloped by black light. It was feeling slightly anxious. At that moment, it let out a dry cough and put on an obsequious expression. Oh, one and only sentient Lord Essence of Light in this ocean of light, do you need a handsome, smart, all-knowing, efficient, intelligent, wise, and kind great bald crane? Let me be your follower. I. When the bald crane began to speak anxiously, Su Ming opened his eyes. With a smile that the bald crane could not see, he sized it up. Kind? He asked languidly. Through the light of extreme darkness, his voice held a chilling tone in the bald crane's ears. It caused its body to shudder, but its spirit was immediately lifted. That's right, I'm a kind soul. When I see people in need, I will lend a hand. When I see people dead, I will shed tears for them and bury them. When I see children, I will be happy. The bald crane quickly said. You lend yourself a hand to their storage bags to see how many crystals they have. You loot the corpses for their crystals, and since children are gullible in your eyes, you scam them for their crystals, Su Ming said flatly. These words momentarily stunned the bald crane. Do we know each other? Why you? Are you? Su Ming smiled. The light of extreme darkness surrounding him vanished to reveal his nascent divinity, and he stared at the bald crane with a smile. The bald crane placed its wing over its chest and let out a pained scream. It took a few steps back with anger overtaking its features. It raised its claw and pointed at Su Ming as extreme sadness showed up on its face. Su Ming. All of my hardships were in vain. I was walking at death's door and was even prepared to die. I sacrificed a large number of crystals and spent tens of thousands, no, hundreds of thousands of years worth of my life to find you. And you, oh, how could you, just now? Oh, I am sad, I am too sad. I've been scammed. Darn you. I've been bullied. The bald crane started wailing, then decided to fall down and start rolling about. Su Ming brought his right hand up and flicked a crystal towards the bald crane. Once it caught it, it immediately beamed, but then immediately suppressed the smile and started screaming again. Do you think you can compensate me with just one crystal? This is a humiliation to me. I, the great bald crane, will definitely not bend over for just one crystal. With a tinkle, another crystal fell. The bald crane watched dumbly as the crystal fell in front of it. A brilliant smile appeared on its face. This time, no matter how hard it tried, it could not suppress the excitement on its face. Especially when, with another tinkle, the third crystal landed. It was followed by the fourth crystal and the fifth. The bald crane immediately stopped rolling around and grabbed all of the crystals, then coughed dryly. All right, I forgive. With a tinkle, the sixth crystal landed. You're completely right. Darn it all, Lord Su, everything you did was right. With another tinkle, the seventh crystal fell. Again. Should we do something like this again? The bald crane was so excited that its whole body trembled, and it made a suggestion the mere thought of which made it happy. Su Ming stared at the bald crane, and a smile appeared on his face. He had long since treated the bald crane as his friend, but it was a friend whom he could not let become too conceited, or else the things which had happened in Black Ink Planet would repeat without end. All right, we should leave now. There are important things we need to do. Su Ming raised his head to stare at the endless ocean of light, and a dark glint shone in his eyes. With a swing of his arm, he swept up the bald crane and charged into the distance. Several days later, space distorted in an area in Morning Daro's sect which belonged to the Immortals Union and was near the core of their territory. It was an empty galaxy in which a ball of black light suddenly shone. When Su Ming and the bald crane walked out of the black light, it scattered away, revealing the black-haired Su Ming dressed in black robes. Standing with a profound gaze, he looked like he had been reborn. The aura he exuded might still belong to those in Mastery Realm, but he, who could now turn into the origin of the light of extreme darkness and had created the ocean remover art, had become much stronger than before. Even the world under space and beyond the universe cannot stop me from returning to this place. I am back, Su Ming mumbled. At that moment, he no longer appeared as Dao Kong, but had instead gained an unfamiliar appearance. This was because he currently did not have a physical body and only possessed a nascent divinity. Yet even if he was only a nascent divinity, he could still bring forth a power that could shock others. Do you want to seize back that real physical body of yours that you mentioned was in the Immortals Union? Darn it all, let's go. Let's go seize back your physical body. I'll go loot crystals. The bald crane spoke with excitement. While doing so, it started shuddering, and the loud racket it created resounded in space. The chances of success for entering the Immortals Union and snatching back my physical body with my current level of cultivation are not high, Su Ming said faintly. Then what should we do? The bald crane was taken aback. We will let those from the Immortals Union and Saint Defier, or even Di Qian himself, personally bring us in. A wicked smile appeared on Su Ming's lips. The bald crane scrutinized him in surprise before starting to mumble in its heart. It wondered if Su Ming had gone mad after he became the origin of the light of extreme darkness. It suddenly became slightly worried about what would happen to the now crazy man. While the bald crane was busy being worried, dark light shone in Su Ming's eyes, and the light of extreme darkness surrounded him. It became stronger and stronger before covering the whole area in that part of the galaxy. The light of extreme darkness. It is a light with incredibly powerful might, so all those who see it will feel tempted. Chapter 1129. Greed. So what if they've seen me use the light of extreme darkness before? They won't be able to guess that I've become the origin of the light of extreme darkness. And so what if this origin of the light of extreme darkness appeared a little too abruptly? Unless they're completely not tempted, a distortion in space that lasted for nearly 7 days had appeared in the galaxy near the Immortals' territory. The area of the distortion spread to 300 million feet, and it caught the attention of plenty of cultivators in the Immortals' Union. It was especially so when the distortions turned into a gigantic crack on the 7th day. A black ray of light that seemed to be able to freeze the universe popped out then. The light continued spreading outwards and turned into the completed version of the origin of the light of extreme darkness. It shone without end within that area of 300 million feet. This scene instantly stunned the entire Immortals' Union. In fact, when another 7 days passed, even Morning Dao sect learned of it. In fact, the battle between the two sides gradually come to a stop after that huge origin of the light of extreme darkness appeared. Countless gazes landed on that area belonging to the Immortals' Union. Every single day, a large number of cultivators from the Immortals' Union would surround the area of 300 million feet and observe the light of extreme darkness which had suddenly appeared half a month ago. There was shock in their gazes along with greed. They could sense a chill that could freeze their hearts spreading out from the light of extreme darkness, and they could also sense the terrifying power contained within it. Throughout the 24-hour time period, there would only be 2 hours when the gigantic origin of the light of extreme darkness was slightly weaker. However, after those 2 hours, it would shine brighter than at any other time of the day. The 2 hours changed every single day. The change was governed by a certain pattern, so many people realized that the essence of light was not sentient. It was only changing on instinct. The cultivators might not know why it had suddenly appeared in the galaxy, but it was a supreme treasure which everyone desired greatly. If they could obtain and refine it, then the power of their divine abilities would be greatly enhanced. In fact, even the famous light of extreme darkness in Morning Dao sect was just a light gathered together to form a striking land. There were rumors that progenitor Dao Chen had personally subjugated it tens of thousands of years ago. But what appeared at that moment was not a single ray of light, but a gigantic essence of light. This difference was akin to a bright moon compared to a candle flame, and the greed grew endlessly in the hearts of all the cultivators who learned about this matter. After all, it was not just a light of extreme darkness, but a huge essence of light. If they could refine it, they would enjoy great successes. If any race took it, they would swiftly increase in power. And if it was taken by Morning Dao sect or the Immortals' Union, it could be refined into an astonishing supreme treasure, and in any battle, it could bring forth outstanding power. The appearance of the origin of the light of extreme darkness caught the attention of the powerful cultivators in the Immortals' Union. However, the core members which came from the Immortals sects and Phoenix sect had locked down the area where the light of extreme darkness had appeared the moment it showed up. It had appeared practically on the Immortals' doorstep, so they were naturally the first to notice it. The ones who were sent to observe it were then mostly from the Immortals sects. This is indeed the light of extreme darkness. When it was the 20th day since the light of extreme darkness had appeared, the white-robed Baifeng stood in the galaxy nearly and spoke coldly to himself while staring at it. By her side was Di Qian, who was also dressed in white and had a head full of white hair. He seemed a little older than he was a month ago. His stare was fixed on the light of extreme darkness, though no one knew what he was thinking. Between the two was the black-robed man which belonged to the 8 paramount Daos and who had come from Saint Defier Expanse Cosmos. His face was hidden under the black hood, but it could not conceal the surprised glint in his eyes. Origin of the light of extreme darkness is a rare origin which can only be found beyond the universe of the Expanse Cosmos where it is born. It has already disappeared from Saint Defier's camp. The light of extreme darkness is something which only grows in developing expanse cosmoses and will disappear when the expanse cosmos has fully developed. Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos. This boundless galaxy only has a sliver of a chance to evolve into an expanse cosmos like Saint Defier and Dark Dawn in the future and develop its own 180 expanse cosmoses. This dazzling light can only appear in this developing, primitive expanse cosmos. To Arid Triad, Saint Defier, and Dark Dawn are the elderly, while it is still an infant. Whoever obtains this infant will overpower the other camp and become the one and only existence in this endless universe. I didn't expect that I would be able to see the dazzling origin of the light of extreme darkness in this primitive arid triad when my body had just descended for around 1,000 years. The black-robed man's eyes sparkled, and he sighed with great emotion in his heart. Make arrangements. I want people to be constantly moving into the origin of the light of extreme darkness during the next half a month, and I want them to find its core. Lock down the perimeter and forbid all others from stepping in. Kill all those who violate this. The black-robed man's eyes sparkled as he spoke slowly. Sublime Paragon Di, if I can gain control over this light of extreme darkness, the chances of life-changing art succeeding will increase by another 2/10. Even if I cannot refine it within a short period of time, all I need is to leave the brand of my divine sense at its core to gain basic control over it. Di-Tian's eyes swiftly focused. He cast a glance at the black-robed man before lifting his right arm. A jade slip appeared on his palm, and once he crushed it, it turned into 9 wisps of smoke that left rapidly into the distance. Soon after, all the immortal sects executed a tight lockdown on the area. Fellow Daoist by Feng, you might have been recommended by your master, but there are still plenty of obstructions before you can become a cultivator of Saint Defier. Your body is unable to withstand the return reversal art, but if I obtain this origin of the light of extreme darkness smoothly, then I, along with your master, will recommend you. With my status as 8 Paramount Dao, I could increase your chances of becoming a cultivator of Saint Defier by 2/10. Bai Feng's expression remained the same. In silence, she cast a cold glance at the origin of the light of extreme darkness. Senior, don't you think that this essence of light came too suddenly? You do know that Dao Kong had control over the light of extreme darkness before he was forced into the world beyond the universe. It's precisely because he had control over the light of extreme darkness that this origin of the light of extreme darkness appeared in this universe. There is a connection between them, though your worries are also noteworthy, fellow Daoist by Feng. The black-robed man laughed loudly. Even though he said those words, he paid no heed to them. In his eyes, Dao Kong had controlled only the light of extreme darkness, while what was before his eyes was the origin of the light of extreme darkness. The difference between the two was akin to heaven and hell. But we do still need to conduct the necessary tests. As the black-robed man laughed hoarsely, he appeared near the light of extreme darkness. He rose his right hand and struck the center of his brows. Immediately, a great wall rushed out with a bang and like a gust of invisible wind that charged towards the light of extreme darkness. After a moment, the black-robed man's body jolted. When he retrieved his will, his eyes under the hood shone with excitement. It is indeed the light of extreme darkness. There's no hint of any consciousness in it. There's absolutely no chance of it being fake. Still laughing, the black-robed man took a few steps back, but he did not immediately make any rash movements. He knew that there was a force in the light of extreme darkness that could gravely injure nascent divinities. However, because it was not sentient, there was a pattern to all of its changes. Once he found a path leading to its core, he could put his brand and claim it for himself. When he had sent his divine sense into it, he had immediately sensed the great power and changes within it. The separation of light when it intersected made even him not dare to force his way inside. In fact, he had even sensed a hint of danger. Yet the more dangerous it was, the more it stirred up the black-robed man's greed. He was also anxious though. He knew that in a month's time, Xingji Dao would arrive, and if he had not obtained the light of extreme darkness by then, he would have a competitor. Then I will have the cultivators of the Immortals Union continue fighting against Morning Dao sect so that they will not be able to spare a single bit of their attention to set their sights on the origin of the light of extreme darkness. As for your promise, I thank you, Senior, Bai Feng said coldly, then bent her knees slightly and bowed to the black-robed man. You flatter me, the black-robed man said with a smile, then turned around and vanished to return to the spot beyond the pillar of light in the Immortals' territory. When his body reappeared, the smile on his face disappeared and was replaced by a stern expression. He raised his right hand and struck the pillar of light. Immediately, the colors within it became muddled, and gradually, 7 distorted figures manifested. The 7 fingers under me fuse into the origin of the light of extreme darkness and investigate it clearly. Find out whether it is man-made and whether it really is not sentient as the rumors say. I will give you 10 days. You must finish your search by then, the black-robed man said flatly. Immediately, the 7 distorted figures flashed in the pillar of light and turned into 7 black-robed men who bent their backs and bowed to him before disappearing as one. Immortals Union went into full operation. Every single day, there were numerous cultivators entering the light of extreme darkness to investigate. Usually, only 1 out of 10 people who stepped in would be able to survive. As time passed and the number of dead and wounded increased, Morning Dao sect executed a large-scale investigation. However, since the origin of the light of extreme darkness had appeared near the core of the territory which belonged to the Immortals Union, Morning Dao sect could not do much. All of the investigations went on methodically. In fact, 7 black-robed men had arrived in the light of extreme darkness several days earlier without making a single sound, and they had begun a detailed investigation of it. Su Ming saw all that happened around him. He saw the divine sense of the black-robed man descend on him, and he also saw the 7 presences which belonged to the 7 black-robed men who were much weaker than the former. They carried out an investigation in his light. Su Ming also saw Di Qian as well as Bai Feng, who looked exactly like Bai Ling. Because he was the origin of the light of extreme darkness, it mattered how and who investigated, Su Ming was still the light of extreme darkness. The only thing he needed to do was hide his will and present to them a being without sentience. With the bald crane's help, all of this was very simple. It was Su Ming's trap, a trap in which he used himself as bait. He was waiting for people to take him, and personally bring him into the tightly defended Immortals Union. And the day for it was drawing close. Chapter 1130. Deceit. There's something wrong with this essence of light. When another 7 or 8 days passed, Bai Feng stood beyond the light of extreme darkness. There was an aloof expression in her eyes, but her brows were furrowed. She had felt from the beginning that the essence of light had appeared too suddenly, and there was even a strange feeling about it. Bai Feng was not the only one who felt this. It could be said that plenty of cultivators were hesitant, but before them was indeed the light of extreme darkness. Because of that, even if they were hesitant and uncertain, that was all. It didn't affect their actions. Su Ming did not fine-tune his plan. In fact, it could be said that there were plenty of weaknesses in it, but Su Ming did not care. As long as he was the origin of the light of extreme darkness, it was enough. Just this alone was enough. This could be considered a straightforward plan that everyone could understand. However, it could also be said that it could not even be considered a scheme. It was a game in which Su Ming used himself as bait. During the past few days, he had seen countless cultivators come over and swim about in his light of extreme darkness while investigating it. Su Ming did not become anxious. He constantly waited for someone who was worthy enough to take the origin of the light of extreme darkness. To Su Ming, there were only 3 people who were worthy to do so in the Immortals Union. One of them was naturally the aloof Bai Feng beyond the essence of light, the other was Di Qian, and the third was the black-robed man who was one of the 8 paramount Daos. Di Qian planned to have his life change, while Bai Feng wished to become an immortal in Saint Defier. Both of them had their own needs, and there was also the black-robed man. This coincided with Su Ming's previous analysis. He had been waiting for the black-robed man in the first place, since he had learned from the soul thread that another powerful warrior from Saint Defier's camp was about to descend. It would be a powerful warrior who had the same status as the black-robed man. This would naturally create a competition. That was why Su Ming was certain that if the black-robed man was tempted, he would definitely come to obtain the origin of the light of extreme darkness before his companion descended. Time passed, and the war between Morning Dao sect and the Immortals Union reached its climax. Every single day, there would be intense, large-scale battles in numerous places in the true world. The number of casualties reached a terrifying number, but even so, the war did not end. It just went on even more fiercely. A few more days passed. When there was less than a month left before the other Almighty from Saint Defier's camp would descend, numerous immortal cultivators surrounded the light of extreme darkness layer by layer. They had investigated most of the interior of the light and discovered its pattern. They had also found a path leading to the core. Su Ming did steer the direction of their investigation. The only thing he did was to turn himself into the light of extreme darkness. As for the other things, if he interfered too much, it would seem too fake. On that day, the black-robed man appeared beyond the origin of the light of extreme darkness again. This time, he had clearly made enough preparations. The eyes hidden under the black hood sparkled brilliantly, and vast power spread out from his body. It was a power that was equivalent to those in Life Realm, but it was definitely not something those in Life Realm within Arid Triad Expanse Cosmos could win against. There was a huge disparity between them. Arcane Void, the third step of the cultivation system belonging to Saint Defire's camp. Su Ming sensed the presence of the power from the black-robed man as well as the vague and slow-moving ripples coming from his divine sense. Dao Kong's body was destroyed, but as long as my nascent divinity is still around, then every single body I have will exude the presence of Dao Kong's soul. It's the same for Yikang's body, and I can do the same thing for that clone of mine which practices the art of swallowing hollow shadows whole. But this black-robed man might be suitable to become another one of my clones, a body which will allow me to obtain a status within Saint Defire's camp. If I went along with my original plan, I wouldn't need to possess him, but now, perhaps possessing him would make the process of seizing back my physical body slightly smoother. But the difficulty in this is too great. He is, after all, an almighty in Arcane Void Realm. In silence, Su Ming slowly pushed down the thought which had suddenly sprouted in his head. He would not allow anything unexpected to happen when it came to him seizing back his physical body. Su Ming temporarily gave up on that thought. The instant the ripples from Su Ming's divine sense dissipated, the black-robed man who was already in Arcane Void Realm standing beyond the origin of the light of extreme darkness slowly raised his foot and walked towards the essence of light with the respect of the countless immortal cultivators around him. Bai Feng was by his side. She formed a seal with her right hand and pointed at space. Immediately, the galaxy distorted, and huge eyeballs appeared. Thousands of them surrounded the area. Dark light shone in each pupil as they stared at the origin of the light of extreme darkness. The black-robed man came to a halt before he turned his head around and cast a glance at Bai Feng. She bent her knees slightly, lowered her head, and bowed. Not bad. The black-robed man laughed hoarsely, and praise appeared in his eyes. Bai Feng's action might not seem to be truly useful, but her intentions could be seen, and this brought the black-robed man satisfaction. Since Bai Feng was always incredibly beautiful and bold, the black-robed man kept on feeling somewhat tempted. When you go to Saint Defire Expanse Cosmos, you can stay by my side. Bai Feng's face might still be icy cold, but a hint of a smile appeared. There was surprised delight within it, and a barely noticeable bashfulness that was just right on her face. It caused the black-robed man to immediately admire her even more. Di Qian, who was dressed in white and had a head full of white hair, had a calm expression on his face at that moment. He did not need to do anything to prove anything. He might long to become an abyss builder, but he knew that Saint Defire's camp longed even more to be able to control an abyss builder. And Di Qian, without a doubt, was the best choice. He was confident that there was no one who could surpass him in this regard, not even those from the Emperor of Abyss True World, because he was the one who thought of this plan, and he had been preparing for it for countless years. In fact, even without Saint Defire's help, he would have 3/10 of a chance to become an abyss builder. The help from the Saint Defiers would just raise his chances. A hint of a brilliant light flashed briefly in Di Qian's eyes. Su Xianyi, we've fought against each other our entire lives, and this time, I will stand before you as an abyss builder and possess you. In the end, I will be the one who will win between us. Various emotions surged up in Di Qian's heart. He had been longing for this day for far too long. Under the gazes of the countless cultivators in the area, the black-robed man took a step forward and stepped into the light of extreme darkness. The powerful warriors from the immortal sects guarded the area with vigilant expressions. They had been given orders to prevent any sort of problems from arising in this area during this period of time, and should they fail, they would die. But fortunately, they were at the core of the Immortals' Union. This was the entrance to the Immortal sects, which was why it would definitely not be easy for those from Morning Dao sect to reach it even if they wanted to. The possibility of them invading en masse was very small. Perhaps individual powerful warriors might rush in, but Di Qian had already made perfect preparations to prevent this. When the black-robed man stepped into the origin of the light of extreme darkness, the many cultivators in the periphery became on guard. Time trickled by, and soon, the time taken by an incense stick to burn went by. The black-robed man drifted in the light of extreme darkness. He did not move quickly. Every single time he moved a certain amount of distance, he would stop for a moment to think. Then, he would change his direction before he moved forward. Endless light of extreme darkness moved about around him. The rays of light moved forward with the black-robed man, becoming stronger as time passed. The stronger they became, the more certain the black-robed man was that the essence of light was not sentient. An hour later, the black-robed man had already completed half of his journey. He became slower. In fact, a large amount of chilling air spread out from his body. The light of extreme darkness around him turned black, as if it had become a gaping mouth that wanted to devour him. Wariness appeared in his eyes. Occasionally, he would take a few steps and lift his right hand, which made it look like he was calculating something. Like that, he finished 7/10 of his journey in 2 full hours. At that moment, the light of extreme darkness swiftly grew several times brighter and stronger. However, the black-robed man seemed to have expected this since a long time ago. Before the light became stronger, he sat down cross-legged, and as he formed a seal with his hands, he immediately brought out a small cauldron. When he pushed his hands against it, he breathed out a breath of his life at it. Green light shone on the small cauldron and enveloped him. The light was as smooth as a mirror, and it continuously reflected the incoming light of extreme darkness. Indirectly, the cauldron had become an essence of light. It truly only weakens for 2 hours. A faint smile appeared on the black-robed man's lips. When he closed his eyes, he seemed to relax all forms of resistance. Instead, he placed all his attention on controlling the small cauldron. When a day passed and the time came for the light of extreme darkness to become weak again, the black-robed man immediately opened his eyes. He put away the small cauldron, then moved forward again. Since his advance grew harder, when 2 hours passed, he was still a distance away from the core of the light of extreme darkness. When the light grew strong again, he sat down cross-legged and used the green light from the small cauldron to fight against it. He closed his eyes and appeared to be very much at ease. He did nothing to fend against anything else. The 3rd day, the 4th day. When the 2 hours of the light of extreme darkness weakening during the 5th day nearly ended, the black-robed man reached the core. It was a dark world, but it could be vaguely seen that there was a perfect runic symbol in the darkness not too far away. It was so complicated that it felt like it would be difficult to remember no matter how many times one looked at it, not to mention that it was barely noticeable in the darkness. This is the core of the origin of the light of extreme darkness. A glint shone in the eyes of the black-robed man, and excitement could be seen on his face. At the instant the 2 hours during which the light of extreme darkness weakened were about to end, he spread his divine sense outwards and swept it towards the runic symbol. He could sense no form of consciousness over there, but it seemed like he did not have enough time to leave his divine sense as a brand. When the span of 2 hours during which the light weakened passed, the vast power from the runic symbol erupted, forcing the black-robed man to immediately sit down and use the small cauldron to protect himself. He also closed his eyes, and beside the green light surrounding him, he didn't use anything else to protect himself. The instant the 2 hours during which the light weakened arrived on the 6th day, the black-robed man moved swiftly and charged towards the runic symbol. When he approached it, his body collapsed with a bang. Blood and flesh spilled everywhere, and all of them fell on the runic symbol. At the same time, a ferocious expression appeared on the black-robed man's face. With disbelief, he swiftly retreated while screaming in a piercing voice. "This is a trap. You are sentient." Su Ming, who had been observing the black-robed man, was taken aback by the bizarre scene, because he had done absolutely nothing.